Let's Make a Deal by John L. French from Devilish Divine. Sipping a Guinness Blonde, I thought back to my first visit to the bar. I was working off a contract, one that ended well for me, enough money to last a few lifetimes, a clean slate, and a fresh start, but not for a guy named Donovan. He had been the target, and from what I later heard about him, he richly deserved the lengthy prison sentence he was now serving. At least he got to drive both a hot car and a hot woman before he woke up in bed next to my dead body. Well, the body I was using then. The buzzer sounded and the team skated out to start the third period. With his team back on the ice, Fred Boyd shushed everyone, his eyes riveted on the tiny screen over the bar. He had been a hockey fan since age 8 when his father took him to a Baltimore Clippers game. He wanted one thing: for the Constellations to bring a hockey championship to Baltimore. It didn't matter that the Federal Hockey Association was the ice equivalent to Double-A baseball. Fred wanted a championship. The Ravens, the Orioles, the Blast, all had at one time topped their leagues. Fred believed that if only the Constellations could join them, their attendance might pick up and guarantee their staying in Baltimore for at least a few more seasons. By the way the Constellations were playing that night, it wasn't likely. They had had losing seasons their first 3 years, and it didn't look good for the fourth. What I wouldn't give for the Constellations to be winners. The question, Mr. Boyd, is not what you wouldn't give, but rather, what will you give? A woman emerged from the back of the tavern. There were booths there, for privacy should someone bring a date, or have to have a private chat, or to drink without being bothered. All eyes on her, she walked toward the crowd who had stopped watching the game to watch her. She was dressed in jeans, boots, and t-shirt, all in black. Her skin and hair were just a shade less dark than her clothes. Her face and arms bore scars from old battles. The glass in her hand contained something dark. Her eyes, however, her eyes shone with a light that made you not want to stare into them for fear of discovering what stared back. Where did she come from? I asked myself, not liking the only possible answer. It wasn't through the front door. I would have remembered. The only back door was behind the bar, and there were bars on the bathroom windows. The woman took a sip of her drink and asked, "Well, Mr. Boyd, what would you give?" And that's when I knew. She was a deal maker, just like the one who had approached me just after my husband moved out and left me with nothing. The man in black showed me how to get out from under my debts and be financially secure for the rest of my life, no matter what. All it would take was a favor. I looked around at the patrons of the bar. 1 or 2 seemed to be thinking the same thing. I was about to order the woman, if that's what she was, out when Fred spoke up. "Just what do you mean, ma'am?" "I think you know." She whistled a few bars of Whatever Lola Wants. I knew the tune and the musical it had come from. So did Fred. "Well, Miss Lola, Joe Boyd and I might share a name, but I'm not about to sell my soul for anything, especially not a hockey team." After Fred said this, I looked at the TV. The game was paused, which was odd. It's not that smart of a TV. I looked at the clock on the back wall. The time hadn't changed since I had last checked it. I looked at my watch. The second hand was frozen. Lola laughed the laugh of someone who knew a joke no one else did. Then she shared the joke with those in the poorhouse. "We don't need souls, Mr. Boyd. 150,000 people die every day, and a surprising number come to us. What I'm asking, in exchange for what you want." Lola turned her attention away from Fred and toward the other bar patrons. Her gaze didn't linger, but her eyes touched theirs just long enough for them to realize what she might be and that her offer was genuine. "Is a service, a favor, a day of your life, a week, maybe a month. It might be as simple as mailing a letter or dropping off a package. You might have to fly to Houston and bump into the right person at the right time. Or you might be asked to help someone you can't stand, or to take a risk you normally wouldn't take. Do that one thing, and we're quits.